Good morning. Welcome to TERRA at Home. We're here with Dave Maciulis, which we would normally have known you from Natural Landscapes magazine, which is going through a rebranding process right now, right? So we're going to talk about that in another show. But your magazine will be called Outdoor Lifestyle Magazine, right?
Yep, the Outdoor Lifestyle and Design magazine.
Okay, all right. So this all comes back to around, you're all doing the same thing, but you've just branched yourself out and made yourself a little bit more available to the average person. And we'll talk about that as well here. We're going to have some special TERRA days where people can come and hang out with you and get some design tips. But really, you're all about, again, outdoor design and just improving property and improving living space outside, and also lengthening those days, right? That's one thing that you've always been very much about, is using our space outside longer, for longer periods of time. So stretching it over seasons rather than just 2 months.
That's right.
Right? That's kind of your thing. So, okay, so let's talk a little bit about when somebody is looking at landscaping the front of their property. That's sort of where we're going to focus today. So the outdoor, the front, why is it so important, first of all, to really pay focus to the front of our property?
Well, it's the curb appeal of our home, and it's the front door that's the focal point, and drawing the eye to the front of the house to make it warm and welcoming is sort of the main objective. But considerations and sort of the design tips that I have with my clients is understanding their wants and needs. And that's really a big thing around budget. Budget is sort of key. You know, people call me up and say, I want to do some landscaping, and you know, you give me the pencil and paper or the mouse and the keyboard, and I can go pretty creative, but you know, to kind of keep it grounded, understand the budget.
But okay, so to that degree, if I was to call you, and I've had this happen before, where someone said, "What's your budget?" I have no idea what my budget is. Right? I really don't know. If especially when it comes to something that's way out of the box for me, I'm looking at my property. I mean, I don't even know how much. Sometimes people don't realize the value and how much money you can actually drop just on the front of your property, but also what you can do for a very little amount of money and make it still look good.
That's right.
So how do you guide someone to find a price there?
Well, there's key questions that we ask. Things like, what are the plants you like or don't like? What are some of the hardscape materials like interlocking stone or asphalt or concrete? Because that plays a huge role in budget.
That's probably the heaviest part of it all, isn't it?
Yeah, big time.
Okay.
And things like the sun and shade patterns will determine the types of plants that can be used. Elevation of a house. If you're sitting higher out of the ground and you have landings that you have to cope with, that can increase the budget. The size of a driveway, the functionality of how you're going to get from the driveway to the front door through a walkway. So these are the key elements that I ask my clients. What do they like? What do they prefer? What kind of moves them? What resonates with them? And put it all together in a concept idea that we can sort of outline. And as they're looking at the evolution of their design, I can already in advance say, well, do you know you need to invest perhaps this? Or you should set aside this. Or if you have to do it in 2 phases, then we're going to have to break it in 2 phases. But the idea is to guide somebody. As a certified landscape designer, I feel a little bit responsible to say, I'm going to help you and guide you through this process.
Okay, and when we're looking at here that the design that you come up with, it's amazing, right? Because again, you're labeling every single, you have it all to scale, and every piece of plant life that's going in there, as you say, hardscape and the softscapes as well. So everything there, but it's along the way, you might stop someone and say, okay, already we are up to this number. So where are we going to go? As you say, maybe breaking it up into 2 stages. This year we're going to just maybe do, your interlocking brick or whatever it may be. But again, you still want to have some sense of curb appeal. You can't leave it partly done.
No, and actually, the important parts, even in small front yards, is the details, accents, pots, benches. So you can spend a certain amount of money, but then you just spend that little bit of extra, come down to, here at TERRA and look at all the different types of accents and details, such as the pots, the benches, and that adds the curb appeal. It makes it look like $1 million.
Isn't it true though? Because that's sort of the way it goes with everything. That goes with your interior as well. It goes even with your dress. When you're dressing, in clothes for both men and women, it's how it's accessorized. So it's all those little details that make something that make something look that much better, right? So that's actually a really good point. Okay, so when we're looking at a design like this, it really gives people perspective. So you can say, okay, I know that you mentioned you liked, these type of a small shrub or that type of thing, but again, we're looking at conditions. So we're looking at maybe the direction your house is facing, as you're saying, too much shade or too much sun or whatever it may be. Some things don't work. So it's giving people other options that they don't even know exist. That's the thing, a lot of people don't know what's out there.
The biggest factor, and it's a major deciding factor in good design, is maintenance. So when I ask my clients how much maintenance that they want to put into a garden, if they say low maintenance, then I'm using this list of perennials, trees, and shrubs. If they're saying they love gardening, well, then we can maybe elevate to another section of perennials and trees and shrubs that require a little bit more maintenance to them, but are very beautiful throughout the year as well.
Right, because some people like to spend that time outside, right?
That's right. Well, and also throughout the year, from spring, summer, into the fall color, but winter interest. So as I try to compose the planting layout, I always try to make sure that it's going to look 12 months out of the year spectacular.
Yeah, and really that winter interest, something I never thought about again as well, until working with all you guys and being here at TERRA, is it really does make a difference because we have a lot of winter where we are.
Oh yeah.
So and the birds will come back for some of that, and you'll still have some element rather than this flat brownish gray nothing in your yard.
That's right.
Even though in a lot of times of the year it's covered in snow, but it still makes a difference.
Well, and lighting plays a big role. So when you have that skeleton work of all the trees and shrubs and the snow is drifting on it, it is spectacular in the evening as well. So it creates a great effect.
Right. Okay. So one thing I do want to touch on is this, Just Ask Dave. So this is sort of your thing right now. So you actually have a website for that.
Yeah, it's justaskdave.ca.
Okay.
And you can go online and it's free, absolutely free to ask me any question that has to deal with outdoor home improvement, front, back, your landscaping, your planting, drainage. There's a lot of drainage issues that are occurring.
Yes.
So any advice that you want to ask me over the internet, it's free to respond back and to give you any advice I can about outdoor home improvement.
That's great.
Yeah.
And we're going to have these special TERRA days that I was mentioning off the top of the show.
That's right.
Where people will come and be able to have the opportunity to actually talk to you one-on-one about maybe some issues they're having. Yeah,
there will be specified TERRA locations. Just keep your eye on the show and keep your eye on the advertisements, and there will be appearances that I'll make, and it's once again free advice. You bring in a picture of your home, some dimensions, or a lot plan, and we're going to sit down just like we are with this sketch pad right here, and we're going to draw out your concept ideas of how your landscape can evolve, and it's absolutely free of charge here at TERRA.
That's awesome, because that's the beginning, right? That's where you need to start. You need to plan. A lot of times people will just go and buy random plants and shrubs and trees and making big investments, and then they come home and they're planting them and they're trying to move them again, and it's not coming together, because it really is it is a work of art. Right, that's what your job is. It's design, and you're putting together this beautiful palette on someone's lawn, and then everything's here available to people at TERRA to put together. So you can suggest plant life, and then they can go buy it.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
Yeah, it's very convenient, all here in one-stop shop.
Very cool. I love that. So again, this is really handy to have, and obviously very handy to have you around on those special days as well. So obviously we're going to take a break. We're going to come back and talk about some of the great TERRA things. We're going to have you on another show, and we're going to break down your whole branding change and explain it to everyone. Thanks so much, Dave.
All right, thanks for having me.
We'll have more TERRA at home after this. When I dream in color. When I think of color, I think of TERRA. Make your dreams come true at TERRA, where color lives.
Heritage Perennials. Look for us in the blue pots.
Good morning. Welcome back to TERRA at Home. We're down here on the beautiful Niagara Parkway, here with Eva in this amazing bed and breakfast, which is quite epic, the Grand Victorian. Yeah. And I think, Eva, thanks for allowing us into your space, first off. But I was mentioning to you before we rolled here that a lot of times people think bed and breakfasts are relatively small. But this is actually quite a large place. But it's still considered a bed and breakfast.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
B&Bs traditionally are somebody's home. Very often empty nesters, actually. It's a marvelous way if you want to keep your home to when your kids all move out and the house is empty. Very often that's what people will do. However, in Niagara-on-the-Lake, because it's such a historic town and full of historic properties, it's a marvelous way to actually get inside those homes. Most B&Bs are 3 rooms. That's actually traditionally the description. They have to be owner-occupied. I'm actually bigger than a traditional B&B. I'm a 6-room bed and breakfast, so I'm considered a country inn, which is actually kind of a horrible thing to call us, because country inns make people think of very different kind of properties with bar lounges and restaurants and things like that. But we're a 6-room bed and breakfast.
6 rooms.
Yeah.
And then when you pull in the driveway and you are connected right beside Rife Winery, so people who are familiar with the winery will all of a sudden say, oh, it's that big beautiful home right there beside
I
it.
hope they say it's the winery right next to the big beautiful Grand Victorian.
Yes, exactly, right.
Next to the winery.
It's
but
right.
It's a historic connection. Actually, the original stables were housed in the administration offices. So the property used to be all one property, the house and the winery.
Oh,
so
beautiful.
Yeah, it's a great history.
And okay, so let's talk a little about the history. Where does it date back to?
Dates back to the 1860s, which is even older than I thought when I bought it. It was built by a young couple who ended up losing it through power of sale. So they were building the home of their dreams and lost it.
You hear these stories,
but it
don't
was
you?
finished, yeah, sadly. But it was finished by John Gale Dixon, who was the founder of the Niagara-on-the-Lake Golf Course, which is
the oldest golf course
in North America. So that was in 1876. So he lived here, and then following that, interestingly enough, Niagara-on-the-Lake became a destination for American visitors, and it was used as a summer cottage for an American family called the Jacksons. So the house was very lightly used, and when I bought it, which was 21 years ago, it had no heating, no plumbing, no wiring, no furniture, no gardens, no flower beds, and all the wood you see, except for the ceiling, was painted. So we've done an awful lot over the last. They painted the wood. That's what they were doing in the 70s.
Oh, right.
So, but you get these marvelous, grand old homes, and this is a house that begs for company. It's not easily lived in as a single family home. So it's a wonderful thing to keep these homes alive by, inviting guests and
absolutely, it's the best way to do it, really. And you have so many tourists, coming through this area because of all the beautiful wineries that we have around the region. Obviously, Niagara and the lake, right downtown, the main street is just so gorgeous, and just a hop, skip, and a jump away from here.
Yes.
So really, it is such a perfect place. You have the river right in front of you.
It's beautiful.
You can't. You bought a bit of a shell of a home at the time, but you have done a lot of work.
21 years later, I still pinch myself. Living in this area and living in this house, it's pretty. With my heating bill, there's the downsides to the big old houses.
Especially the cold winters that we've been having lately, right?
Oh my goodness.
Yes, but so your job as a proprietor, and you're here, and as you mentioned earlier on, you're living here as well. How is that? What is that like when you have guests in your home, and then breakfast the next morning too, right? Yeah. Up and at 'em, no sleeping in.
It's great, and I think a lot of people open B&Bs and they try to put on something, and you can't, because you're living it 24/7. So you have to be very relaxed with your guests. You have to enjoy them. If they get you with muddy knees because you've been in the garden weeding, then that's the way they get you. You can't play the hostess all the time. I think guests need to expect that they're staying in someone's home, and
certain
that's
guests,
what they're getting.
That's right, but certain guests like, either these epic hotels where it's a different kind of service, right? Or, so I think if you are into B&Bs, and we were talking, I love the idea of a bed and breakfast. That's what you comes with, and it comes with someone with your personality. Right out of the gun, I noticed that right away with you. It needs to be that, because people are sitting around and wanting to talk to you and have questions for you. You've probably told, so many stories over and over again.
If I had a nickel for some of the stories
right?
every time I tell it. Yeah, and it's wonderful.
But it's new to them.
Yeah.
Right?
And because this is such a great place, when people come in my door and they go, that's everything for me.
Oh,
it's like, wow. And like I said, that's why this house, we do events here. We do weddings. Oh my God, the most romantic weddings. But the guests that stay here, and keeping in mind, it's original floors, plaster, glass, wood.
And people like to see that too.
They
want
like
to see
that,
original.
but you lose a certain degree of perhaps some of the luxuries that people would expect. So you don't get the soundproofing. So, when guests come home late at night, you may hear them on the stairs, or we don't have jacuzzi bathtubs because the place would be just vibrating. So there are certain luxuries that you can't offer and wouldn't want to offer in a house like this.
No.
No TV.
No TVs.
No
Interesting.
TVs.
But you know
People
what,
love
though?
it.
I think
They're
it's
great
great.
with it.
Honestly, I don't really feel like I have much time when I'm away to watch a TV anyway. So I think, you know, it's you want to come down here and enjoy this space and sit down, and you know, we're right by the fireplace in this big grand room as we come in the front door. So this is where you'd want to spend maybe a night to have a nightcap just before bed and
Scrabble.
Right?
I mean, it's amazing the things people find to do. Drink wine, read books, and it's like a down.
And you
Just
know, I
relax.
think what's great too about bed and breakfast is the guests start to get to know each other as
They do.
well. And then you have your guest books, and people write their stories. And give me an idea of some of the places people have come to visit you from.
You know, I remember when 20 years ago when I started doing this, your average length of stay was a day. Mostly your guests were either from Toronto or within that area or US.
Sure.
Now I have European guests on a regular basis. So, and minimum stays are 3 nights. So people are coming, they're staying longer. I mean, Shaw Festival, the wineries, the bike path, the fruit markets. I mean, there's so many reasons to stay longer now. Whereas 20 years ago, there wasn't so much.
The internet's helped with that though, right? For searching and being
and
able to find
internet,
you,
absolutely.
right? So that
But
makes it.
Hong Kong, Japan, China, Europe, South Africa.
Then you become more of a destination spot for people
are.
because, you know, once they've come, they've had a great experience, then...
And they tell their friends, because when you're going that far, you want referrals. Of course, there's always TripAdvisor and all the other ones. But
Exactly, right, all of that. So breakfast, describe breakfast to me here at your place, because that's obviously a big one for a lot of people. That's part B of the bed.
That is, it's a big part. I mean, we have 2 opportunities, right? The bed and the breakfast, and we better get them right. We have fun with our breakfast. It's a buffet style breakfast, brunch style. So we do a selection of cold cuts and cheeses, salads, fruit, yogurt, granolas, all your traditional things that you might want at breakfast. And then we do a different hot dish every day. And we're quite famous for some of our hot dishes. We have an amazing creme brulee French toast, and we share recipes. So we're very,
Great. I bet you do.
we're very generous. That because we leave out that one ingredient, don't we? That makes it
So
special.
they come
but
back.
No. Yeah. So we do wonderful, wonderful breakfasts, and they satisfy pretty much everybody. It's not too often that you get the odd guy usually that wants his eggs and bacon, but that's rare.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you're of British descent.
Yes.
Born there and came over here and picked up your nice Canadian accent, and now you're here, but you know how to host. And again, some of those beautiful bed and breakfasts are right in the UK, so you've
they
picked
do it
up some
really
good
well
things.
there.
And I understand you do as well. So I can't wait to come and
Thank
stay
you.
sometime.
Yay,
This is fun. Thank you for
yes.
letting us in this wonderful space. It's so beautiful in here.
You're
awesome.
so welcome.
The
Happy
Grand
to share it.
Victorian. So nice. We'll be back with more Terra at Home right after this. When I dream in color. When I think of color, I think of Terra. Make your dreams come true at TERRA, where color lives.
You've sat under them and built forts in them. You've swung from them and fell out of them. You've even fallen in love under them. Trees have always held a special place in our hearts and memories. A natural beauty, trees will grow with you and your family and bring color and nature into your world. For your assurance of quality, look for trees and shrubs with the Medallion plant tag. Medallion plants, locally grown, the pride of Niagara.
Good morning, welcome back to TERRA at Home. We're back with Chef Mark from La Piazza Allegra Restaurant in Hamilton in our TERRA kitchen. And what are we making today? I see all kinds of interesting things,
Yeah, there's
including
a whole bunch of
blackberries.
different. Yes, we're doing braised beef short ribs.
Okay.
But most people have had beef short ribs in a very traditional barbecue,
Yes.
sweet. Maybe you've gone a little bit outside of the box with the flavor of hoisin or some soy or something like that. But it is normally done very, very sweet.
Okay.
This is a little bit different. So what we have here is a couple ribs, and you're going to have to go to your butcher and ask them to cut it for you. So I've asked them to have about a 3-inch cut on these short ribs, okay? And at the same time, they asked me whether or not I wanted the bone knocked back here, which means just cutting it and breaking it.
Yes.
I left it whole.
Okay.
That way the meat sits on top. Because when you break it like this, it really does want to start falling apart, even more so than it will once it's braised, okay?
Yes.
So what we're going to do, So we're going to salt this. And I got a skillet on, and what we're going to do is we're going to sear the ribs first. Then we're going to end up, eventually it's going to end up in a roasting pan.
Okay.
But we're going to do it in the pan to start off with. So we have a touch of oil.
The searing's going to give it a lock in the flavor, right? And
That's
give
right.
it
Yeah, and it's
more
going to start to caramelize.
Sure.
And we're going to put, I'm going to start it on the bone side.
Okay.
Now, what we have for ingredients here is a little bit of tomato paste, okay? This is going to go in fairly early because I want this to caramelize as well, okay? And that'll help bring out some of the sweetness in it.
Yes. Okay.
So we're going to put that in. You can rub it on the meat if you want or just around the pan.
Okay.
We have juniper berries.
Okay. I was wondering what those were.
So what I've
They
done
were
is
juniper berries. They looked like it.
they are, and juniper berries are really nice. They give a real interesting flavor to things. Okay, so what I've done is I've just taken them. I've taken my meat mallet. I've crushed it down. Now you don't need a lot of the juniper berry because it's a very, very strong, very potent
Yes,
flavor.
I can imagine. You don't want to ruin your dish by
That's
adding
right.
too many.
So throw a little bit of pepper on that as well. We also have blackberries. Okay, so we're going to use some blackberries. We have some garlic. We have some brown sugar. We have a little bit of sherry,
Wow.
red wine, and the other thing we're going to use is stock.
Stock. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Some really interesting ingredients here.
Some interesting flavors. Like I said, it's a little bit different than what you might be used to. There is going to be some sweetness that you're going to get because of the brown sugar
Right.
and stuff like that. So
Right.
that's going to, balance the dish. But for the most part, it is not going to be that really saucy, thick barbecue sauce flavor that you
Right,
would normally
okay.
get.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll seal both of these. And just going to move that tomato paste around.
This would be fun for people to try, though, because again, as you say, it's so outside of the box. People who do like short ribs, and they are quite lovely.
They are very
You know,
nice.
it is nice to try something a little bit different. So.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? You're incorporating some fruit in there, which is nice.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I like the idea of the blackberries for sure.
yeah. So I'm going to add a little bit of garlic to this now.
Okay.
There we go. I'm going to take some of those juniper berries. And again, I don't need a lot of that, so I'm going to use about half of what I've crushed.
Okay.
There we go.
I've never cooked with juniper berries before, so. But I know you like to, so.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a real distinct flavor. And you know what's nice about it? It's one of those flavors when you cook with it, people have a hard time picking it out.
Figuring out what I
They
can imagine.
can't figure out. They know they've had it. They've
Right.
tried it. I mean, if you drink gin at all, this is where it comes
Sure,
from.
exactly,
So,
right.
so they've had it. They can't pick
They
out what
can't
it is, and
figure it
and
out.
it does give it a real unique kind of flavor to it. So we're gonna throw in blackberries. I'm gonna throw them all in. There we go. Why keep any?
Why?
I have the sherry. Now
Okay.
again, you got to be careful. Anytime you do something with alcohol over a really hot pan, you got to be careful it doesn't flare up on you. There we go. That'll help deglaze the pan. We're gonna get those berries in the bottom there.
So they'll slowly just kind of start to break down.
They'll start breaking
and this-
down. They're going to let out a little bit of tartness to it, a little bit of sweetness, and it also adds texture because they, believe it or not, even once they cook, they will still hold their shape.
Right, because they have a pretty strong core, don't
They
they?
do.
Yeah.
They do.
And that's the thing with blackberries. They, as you say, they're not the sweetest of fruits as we know,
Right.
or of berries. So they, I guess, as you say, just that little bit of brown sugar and the combination of those will just be enough.
Yep. So we have our brown sugar. Now,
good.
it depends on how sweet you do want it.
Right.
Okay. I don't particularly like overly sweet
No,
proteins.
no, I don't either.
I prefer the tart side of things. So I put a little bit of brown sugar in there. If you wanted more, you can always add more.
Okay.
And then we got some red wine here. Now, it depends on what wine you want. I went with a Chianti. Okay.
Okay.
It's got a little bit more acidity. It's not as heavy bodied as, say, a Cabernet or anything like that. That way, it enhances the flavor of the berries, but it doesn't necessarily overpower the flavor. If you get into, a Cab Sauv or something like
Right.
a Cab Franc, I mean, those are pretty big, or
Yes.
Barolo Amarone. They're big wines. They can tend to overpower what you have going on in this pan.
So knowing that, would you recommend drinking a Chianti with the dish then as well, or
I recommend drinking Chianti whenever you want.
for breakfast? As Mark.
That's right.
Goes well with peanut butter toast.
No, you could go to a heavier wine once it's cooked.
Once it's cooked,
because
okay.
it,
Because of
there's
the
a
flavor combos.
That's right, and you got some pretty savory meat here. There's a lot of
Yes.
fat content, so
Okay.
you can go to a big,
You could go
robust
because
wine
you've
on
got
this.
juniper berries and you've got the tomato paste in there, and yeah,
That's
so
right.
Okay.
So there we go.
So you don't always have to drink the wine, because then that way you can just finish off the Chianti now while you're cooking, and then you go
open
to the
a new
next
bottle.
one.
That's right. I open a bottle, decant it. This one's already ready to go, and it turns into quite the party. Now I have some vegetable stock. You could add some beef stock if you had beef stock.
Sure.
Doesn't really matter. Beef stock will give it become a little bit more robust than just using a vegetable stock. But I didn't have a chance to make beef stock earlier this morning, so
it works.
vegetable stock will work. Now what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna let this come to a rapid simmer, and then we're gonna transfer it into our roasting pan, and we're gonna put it in the oven, and this is low and slow.
Low and slow. So
Low
we're
and
talking
slow.
how slow? How long?
300 degrees, you're wanting about 2.5 to 3 hours in the
Nice.
oven.
And then you're going to come up with some very tender meat.
And it will fall right off the bone.
Ooh, can't wait for that. All right, so what we'll do, take a quick break. We'll put that in the oven as Mark suggested. We'll come back and well, I can't wait to try this actually. All right, we'll be right back. When I dream in color. When I think of color, I think of TERRA. Make your dreams come true at TERRA, where color lives.
I am a truth seeker.
A storyteller.
A dedicated volunteer.
I am a caring neighbor.
A customer's best friend.
And a client advocate.
I am a survivor.
A social media junkie.
A proud father of four and problem solver.
I am the Hamilton Spectator.
I am the Hamilton Spectator.
I am the Hamilton Spectator.
I am.
We are the Hamilton Spectator.
Welcome back to TERRA at Home, back with Chef Mark and our short ribs, which were in the oven for like 2.5 hours or so.
About 2.5 to 3 hours. You're going to have to take a look at that and see, make sure that it's starting to fall off the bone, the meat is nice and tender, and then you know they're done.
Okay.
So,
and look at that.
Yeah. So we took them out. I put them back into my my pan, my searing pan, and I'm just putting the rest of this sauce in here, and I'm going to reduce this down a little bit. But you can see that it just wants to fall right off the bone now.
Oh my goodness.
Now, the one thing about ribs, there is a fair amount of fat.
Yes.
Okay, and it's right in the middle of it.
Right.
That should be there. Don't think that, you got a really
bad cut
or something like that.
Yeah.
That's going right through. It's exactly your prime rib.
Right.
Okay, so you know that there is going to be that layer of fat all the way through. But when it gets on the plate, everybody can just cut it off.
Sure, and it's
take
obviously
out the
giving
fat.
a ton of flavor,
Giving
right?
a ton of flavor. And all I'm doing here, I took that sauce because you still got all that, you got the berries in there, you got the sugar, you got the wine, everything's reducing down.
Awesome.
Make a really nice thick sauce. Well, actually, while that's going on, I did bring some cashews.
Oh,
And what
right,
I'm gonna
okay.
do
Yeah, this is an interesting addition, cashews.
This will give it a little bit of a crunch.
Okay.
So you got a texture in here, and I like the cashew on top of a braised rib. I think it really adds a little bit of neat dynamic to the dish. We're just going to have a rough chop there.
Okay, well, while you finish that up, I just want to remind everybody that you can learn how to make this recipe and get the recipe from our website, terragreenhouses.com. We're actually wrapping up season 5 of our show.
5.
So as we go into season 6, we want to thank all of our viewers at home who have been supporting TERRA and watching and enjoying all the fun things that we feature on our show, obviously from food to plant life, horticulture, and all the great little items and great things we have in our community and in our store. And last day of the TERRA at Home Winter Market as well today, and closes at 3 o'clock because, yay, we're moving from winter to spring. That is a good thing. And of course, all the TERRA locations will be just full of wonderful color. And look at that. And we have a good meal for us. Thank you so much.
There you go.
Have yourself an awesome weekend.